So welcome everyone to our second day webinar, DevOps Engineer. And here's our mentor, instructor, today's speaker, Alexey Pasichnik. So please take the floor and introduce yourself.
Grounds up. Good evening, everybody. I see some faces from yesterday and a little bit of a new faces too. So, yeah, my name is Alexei. I'm a DevOps engineer, senior DevOps engineer to be specific, in the quite large company. And also, I'm teaching instructor here at the BlackScreen.ai. Uh, Today's lesson will be focused more on the practical application of certain skills, and as well, I'll show you how to automate things if you do not really want to run them manually, right? As I promised, today's lesson is an extension of the previous one. And for those who missed the lesson from yesterday, please can ask our, um, yes, our educational coordinator, essentially, to give you the link because it's being recorded. It's somewhere in the YouTube, and you can obtain the link either contacting us through the BlackScreen AI web form or by just posting your request here in the chat too, I think. My main specialty, what do I do, right? I specialize in a lot of technologies as any DevOps, because DevOps engineer is quite a large toolset profession. What you see on the slide mostly is about really complex tech, and it's a Docker Kubernetes virtualization. I done my fair share of distributed systems, so basically means microservices, and high load in a high load cloud environments. What that means I work for the company who has more, which has, sorry, my English, which has more than 70 millions of daily active users. And essentially, I'm a part of the team who helps to work with these people and make everything work. I do have good background with the AWS. That's what our DevOps course is focused on. And well, I've done my fair share of migrating certain workloads from the from the server architecture, basically EC2 instances, something what you guys learned with me yesterday, into the Kubernetes. Again, virtualization, all fun stuff. So I think we can continue. Next slide, please. Before we begin, before we kind of begin the actual lesson, I gonna give you guys think a little bit about what you actually want to see today. So, do you really want to see it hard way, or you want to keep it light and just focus more on the explanations, what kind of magic happened on the screen? Um, Please vote in the comments. So you have a chat. Please post easy or hard. And based on that chat, give you the I will give you the either a less complicated, more complicated lesson today about BlackScreen AI, right? Uh, that's the company which was founded as the side project of the PSV. PSV is quite a big company by now, and we've been for quite a long time on the market since 2016. The PSV was founded in California by the people who came to the US from the other side of the world, technically, from Ukraine and Belarusia, I think. They were essentially focused more on the software developers, but at certain point we introduced DevOps course, and BlackScreen AI is the logical extension of it. So as most of our um, teachers basically gain the confidence in English language, and of course some of us are not native speakers, so bear with my accent. It's a Ukrainian accent, by the way, for those who kind of quite can catch it. And basically we decided, hey, there is a demand, and people asking us, and people really wanted to have the DevOps course in English. So that's why we founded the BlackScreen AI, specifically focused on that part. I think you can go for the next slide.
There
Thank
is a
you.
question in our chat.
It's
I'm not.
okay. We can leave questions for a little bit later. And it's not a question, it's a suggestion. I asked you guys to remind you. I'm asking you what kind of lesson you want to have today? A little bit easier, focused on the beginner's explanation, or a little bit more harder, but it will be way more knowledge to absorb. And yes. uh, okay. I see that Anthony wants the hard way. Cool. No, I mean, appreciate it. I was expecting it from you. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And basically the main tools in the DevOps toolset. Again, guys, I will be skipping a lot of stuff today in our slides because a lot of things being talked about yesterday. For those who missed the yesterday lesson, please ask for the link to the YouTube and you will have a fun time. And yesterday's lesson actually show you how to manually launch the server and launch your own website with a pumpkin on it. Not gonna spoil it completely. Already spoiled it halfway, but well, fun. So ask for that link, and definitely by the end of the yesterday lesson, you would have your own website. Um, let's keep going on. So technology, right? What DevOps is using? DevOps is using cloud, one of the cloud providers. Some people know all of them. Some know only one. It's not necessarily to know all of them. You just need to know the names. Why I will explain later. And my skill set includes AWS and GCP. GCP I'm not so professional with, but the main focus is the AWS. Why AWS? Because they are occupying 60% of the market at this point. GitHub. GitHub is the must-have. That's something what we probably gonna work with today. That's where I'm gonna get my templates and code, and that's what we will be basically working with moving forward all the time. Jenkins as automation powerhouse. So you would need to pick your poison and pick the tool which you would like to use for the automation later on. On our course, we focus on the Jenkins, but if you know Jenkins and you understand the core principles from the Jenkins, then basically you can work with any automation tool moving forward. Terraform. Terraform, that's something what helps us to set up the cloud. I'm pretty sure all of this is like a buzzwords for people who already have the background. For those who don't, well, Terraform is a tool, another tool. That tool sets up the cloud resources for us, and and the Terraform is pretty much cloud agnostic. What that means? That means it doesn't matter which cloud provider we're gonna use, and it can be adapted to pretty much anything. That's why it's not really important which cloud provider you work with, but technically you need to know at least one. Ansible. Ansible is the tool of choice for the automation of the deployment and setup of the application code and setup of the servers. So essentially, Terraform turns the server on for us. Ansible goes in and sets it up. And well, Docker, fairly new tech, which came around sometime in 2016, although it was invented way earlier by Google, I believe. Docker solves a lot of problems, and Docker helps us to actually avoid usage of Ansible or basically bring it to the bare minimum. And Docker dips into the virtualization world. So essentially, if we use Docker, we wouldn't have the Ansible in our system. Well, more about it again on our course, but Docker helps a lot and it helps a lot for the developers. Next tool, Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes was built on the top of the Docker. So it's a logical evolvement of the Docker technology, and it solved deployment problems, and it helped us to manage our infrastructure in the more efficient and more resilient and faster way. So we could spin up our servers faster, and it would be easier to perform the actual code replacement or deployment, right? There are many more tools. I'm not gonna stop on all of them. Along the course, you're definitely gonna learn all of them. um, and I think we can go to the next slide.
Here I
Is it?
can,
Is it the next slide? Okay.
yes.
Yes, salary. Hey, all of us interested probably what's the salary of the DevOps engineer. I know for some of you, by the way, this is kind of repetition of the same presentation, so just have your patience a little bit. Um, Essentially, as I said yesterday, and every time I see this slide, it's kind of on a conservative side. Currently, the salary range for the senior DevOps engineer is a little bit higher. We just gonna keep working with it, what we have, but this is the official statistics from the Indeed. And after finishing our course, you would be able to compete for such a salary, and you will be able to pass the interview. The thing is, you would need to commit and you would need to learn for sure. Trust me, there is a lot of knowledge. Next slide, please. What you will learn, right? Again, I probably already went through that slide, but fine. Terraform, Kubernetes, Jenkins, Ansible, not necessarily in that order. We start from the easy stuff and then we go into the more complicated. The easy stuff would be doing something like what we did yesterday, manually launching the instances and setting them up. The more complicated stuff involves Terraform, Jenkins, Ansible, than Docker, right? It's really aligns with what Anthony requested me, but Anthony, your request is like a fourth or fifth lesson probably in this series of webinars, honestly. Um, you know what? I might leave a little bit of time and just speed run it at the end. Uh, because I really want to cater to your ask. I really understand what you asked, and well, that's gonna be fun. Um, so we're gonna work with the databases as well, such as MongoDB, MySQL, and our cloud provider of choice is AWS, and we're gonna work with the monitoring tools such as Prometheus and Grafana. Next slide, please. Timeline, right? We start on November 6th. 3 lessons a week with me. You will see my face, hear my voice. We do have practice lessons, which are additional 2 lessons a week. There is a possibility of the internship. We do have a project which we run. That's the place where you come pick the task and work on it yourself. Completely real world experience where you work with me as with a manager, not with a teacher, and you just perform yourself. And we do provide the career support. So essentially, we do have additional lessons essentially with the HR person and with the actual recruiter person, and they will help you to compile your resume, teach you how to speak properly on the interview, what to say, what to not, how to present yourself, and such. And at the end, you should be ready to hit the market. So that's our career coaching. By the way, do not think if you finish your course, this is it. Like nobody's gonna turn off the access for you. You always gonna have forever access as long as the portal exists or the company exists. And you can always come back for the next round. So if you like me so much, trust me, you would not. That's okay. But some people they come back after like a couple years for the refresher because the course is completely evolving. I keep adding new stuff into it, more information, more knowledge, and I'm restructuring certain things along the way for sure. So you would hear kind of the same, but in a different patterns, and you would see new stuff which comes in because well, I'm actively working DevOps engineer, and I do have my own professional share, and I'm actually working for the company who's still staying on the bleeding edge of the technology. So I know a thing or two about stuff which some people haven't seen yet. Okay, next slide, please.
Can you please add a little bit details about internship? What kind of project they participate in?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to keep it a black box, but at the moment we have at least 4 different tasks. Like one of them was porting the real world application into the Docker and launching on the in the server on premises. That's one of the projects. The other project is, let's say, working on the backups for our Jira or something what I've been really passionate about, for example, working with the artificial intelligence, but not with the perspective of actually setting up the artificial intelligence model, but more on the perspective of making it work. So turning it on, making sure it's accessible, making sure it's accessible to the other people. Um, and there's more tasks than that. The PSV is also actively developing software by themselves with the help of the software developers. So there is software developer stream as well. And one of the biggest projects currently where they badly needed DevOps engineers is a CRM system. Well, everybody does CRMs, right? But they have a CRM with their own twist. They actually use the AI engine on the back to set it up and provide the best possible experience for the customer. So that's just a few projects. There is way more. We track it all in our specifically dedicated place, and you can always just come in and pick what basically is your something what you are passionate about, so you can work on it, and something what is the interest of you. That's our internship.
Great, thank you. I will add that if you are already DevOps engineer, or if you're already have your knowledge in DevOps sphere and you need just to practice them to get real experience, you can join internship, take only internship as a DevOps engineer. Here
Okay,
you can
so
see
classes
schedule.
schedule, you can pretty much skip that one, but okay. We are planning our classes at 6:30 Pacific, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 9:30 a.m. The practice lessons are adjusted for the group, but overall they were mostly like Thursday and Sunday. The lessons are expected to be between 1.5 to 2 hours. All lessons are recorded, so you can get access to the recording afterwards. So if you need to rewatch it, you need to find some details you missed. I went through something super fast. You didn't catch it, then it's all fine, and you can always just come back and rewatch it. Next slide.
Oh,
Okay,
no, no.
so yes, that's the
Here we
price
will
of the
come.
course.
Yes, in
That's
the end.
okay. I think we should pause there and just come back to our lesson. So here's the most fun part begins. And I would try not to be too fast, but I would try not to be too slow either because we have a limited time, right? I see that there are two requests. One is from Odell. Hi, Odell. High level for beginner level if possible, if it's not okay. If not, it's okay. Well, I think you really want to pay attention to the magician on the screen. And Anthony is like, hey, I want the real world great example of launching and migrating stuff from the local computer into the cloud. Um, I think I have a feeling I really want to cheat today, because the the application, if we start the migration, it's gonna take us another couple hours. We do not really want to do that. And I will start from the something which I already have. And for you, Anthony, I will specifically backtrack and actually do it completely manual. Something what you asked. So hold on, let me log in into my AWS Cloud account. So for current lesson, to make it work, you would want to have a Jenkins. Jenkins is the automation powerhouse application, right? And you probably never heard about it, and that's okay. But essentially, for the people who work on the DevOps field or who work in the QA, it's a kind of bread and butter at certain point, because that is the automation powerhouse, and um, that thing can perform a lot of things and basically do the same as you would do manually, but automating these steps. And as of me, yeah, I see, right. You use Jenkins every day. So that's super cool. But there are a lot of people who kind of just like, what the heck is this, right? So I gonna try to build up on the yesterday's lesson and with some twist. So the idea is that you would need to have the same server launched as yesterday. The only thing is that you would want to pay attention to the size of the server you are requesting from the AWS, because Jenkins itself is quite resource consumptive application. So it would really need two vCPUs and it would need 4 gigabytes of RAM. Talking about that, right? Every server, every computer has a certain technical characteristics. Same as your laptop, your cell phone, your TV at the end of the day. Yes, trust me, your TV does have a CPU in it as well. And essentially, in the world of the DevOps and application development, you would want to allocate certain resources for your application. On yesterday lesson, we launched one of the smallest servers possible. That's the smallest server which Amazon can provide for us, right? Um, and the size of this server, that's something what we talk a lot in the DevOps world, right? Is essentially, I think it's a one vCPU and 1 GB of RAM. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be able to get it from here. So it's possible to find it by just AWS instance sizes, right? There is a official page where they have a description of all of the servers which they can provide to you as the end user. I posted link in the chat. If you didn't quite catch it, you either Google it or ask for the link afterwards. So here are a lot of fancy letters, and they do mean something, right? In general, they do mean the server family. There are like general purpose, cost optimized, memory. Oh, sorry, cost. Well, talking about costs. I will get back to it. We'll get back to it a little bit later. But right now, it's a compute optimized, memory optimized, accelerated computing, storage optimized, HPC optimized, instance feature, and all of that is not interest of us. We are really interested in the compute optimized servers. The reason why, because we want to get more CPU capacity, the main engine which drives our devices and which drives the servers, right? If we pick the memory optimized, we're gonna get the same vCPU, but more memory, so more RAM. Do not mix it up with the hard drive, right? It's not a hard drive, it's a random access memory, or essentially the memory which temporarily stores your data for faster access from the vCPU. Now, uh, all of these servers, they do have its own price. So some of them, like general purpose, and we dug into like T3 family, I think, or T2 family yesterday. Those costs around, I think we launched one like micro, so that was it. One vCPU, 1 gig of RAM. That one costs around, what was that yesterday? 1.3, 1.5 cents per hour, right? If we launch something like this, and I would prefer to go for the C6A so far because price for this server is still competing with the price of the next family generation. Essentially, this one costs, I think, something like 3 to 5 cents per hour. So that's basically 2.5 times more expensive. Also, if you just open your account, AWS gives you access to the general purpose T-type families. So that means you're not going to pay anything for this one. I think it's T2 micro or T3 something. I don't exactly remember them, but again, you can really Google it or find it in a free tier, right? I'm using a little bit bigger server for from the C6A large family to launch my Jenkins. The reason being, hey, Jenkins is quite resource intensive, so we would gonna need it. So if you're following yesterday lesson and launching server manually, you do everything the same, but you would want to pick up bigger instance from the instance type. It's also possible to launch exactly the same server as we did yesterday, following the steps. And from here, you can actually go into the actions, instance settings, and from here, you can do something like this. Um, Hold on. There's an option to change the hardware, change the instance type. Here we go. And from here, you can just type in C6A dot large. Be very careful with what you type and specifically pick up large. AWS even gives me this handy comparison note, right? Saying like, hey, this one costs that much, that one costs that much. And actually, in my case, wow, that one is almost like 1 cent per hour, and this one is close to eight. So it's like 8 times more expensive. Regardless, going back, right? Going back, I do have already Jenkins server set up for me because I use it a lot and we're gonna use it a lot too. You're gonna have your own on our course. So essentially, you're gonna have your own like Pocket Jenkins. And I'm just gonna start it. That's the way how we control the servers. And in this case, hey, I just pushed the power button. So I'm turning it on. While it's turning on, we're gonna go to the GitHub. Again, I mentioned we're gonna have this tool, right? And we're gonna use it a lot. So in our organization, we do have a GitHub repositories made specifically for us users. And that means that after every lesson, you're going to get access to some snippets of code, something you would need to work with, and so on. You see there's like DevOps English already, and there's DevOps January, depending on the stream and so on. We label it to what we work with. So once you are in, you're going to get access to the appropriate repository, which you can work with. In my case, the Jenkins server already turned on. It says it's running. It didn't pass the init checks, but that's fine. What I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna go into the Jenkins website because I connected the URL to my Jenkins. And what's interesting is that it lost the security certificate. And this is kind of okay, but I should really update it, I think. In my case, I just open it. Okay, so it's not started yet. Nice. Um, that is also still fine, so we can wait a little bit longer. Does Amazon have any issues? Well, it's a live demo, so we would never know, right? While it's starting, let's just repeat a little bit of steps from yesterday. So yesterday, I connected into the terminal by using the connect button. Here is gonna do the same. Just connect. What I want to see, I actually want to see why my Jenkins didn't respond, right? And to learn that, I can use quite few simple commands because on this server or on this instance, I have Docker installed. That's specifically for you, Anthony. So if I do something like this, Docker PS, I would see that I have nothing running, although I would expect to see here Jenkins, which is quite interesting. So the next command which I would run, I think I'm running Jenkins as the native app directly on the server. So that would be then this way, sudo systemctl status Jenkins. I would really like to mute somebody who's kind of talking right now. Can you? Thank you. Okay. So basically this command will show me the status of my Jenkins application. And lo and behold, it says that, hey, it's actually loaded, which is again quite interesting. So if it's loaded, maybe this page is supposed to show me something else now. Interesting. It's either something went broken. If it went broken, we're gonna go start from scratch and set up the Jenkins, but I do not really want to do that. So hold tight. And I really want to see what's going on with the Jenkins, right? It's fully loaded, yes. I'm either doing something wrong here. I'm trying to connect to the wrong Jenkins, which shouldn't be the case. Yeah, that runs. I can also address Jenkins by the IP address here. And it's gonna say something. I'm gonna say yes, okay. Here we go. I think it's actually cached the page. I'm kind of curious why this has happened, but well, there is a hard refresh in here, so I'm not exactly confident. No, it's just that just not. Okay, we're not gonna spend a lot of time here, but essentially, hey, that's my Jenkins. You can install Jenkins manually here through the terminal. Same, open the terminal as we did yesterday. All instructions are on the official Jenkins website. So Jenkins install, here is the installing Jenkins manual. Again, do not be scared. There's a lot of fancy words. All what you need to click on the Linux tab. Uh, and essentially just copy paste these commands. They do even have the nice copy button here, right? Again, I'm posting it in the chat. So for those who want, who can, you can just copy it. You can use it later if you're gonna try to do it following me. Next steps, right? We have Jenkins. If once we have Jenkins, we would need to log in it. That is the next part of the manual, honestly. We'll see if it will log me in. Yes, it did. Perfect. So to log in into the Jenkins, if you are installing it first time, there is the additional section. So please read to the end because all documentation is important. And here at the end, it will tell you that first you would want to install the Java actually. That's okay. Basically, the last piece is this. So to unlock your Jenkins, you would want to find the password. And to find the password, here are the bunch of commands, which again, you do not really need to memorize them, but you would need to just copy them and paste. That's what I'm saying. If you really want to install the Jenkins, you gotta follow the documentation. Now, once we have a Jenkins, I just gonna turn on the automation. Essentially, this is a script which we wrote with the students sometime, I think, on the lesson 15. So it's a quite advanced lesson today. And what's this automation gonna do for us, right? I'm gonna turn it on and we will go and look actually what it does. Essentially, this thing consists of steps. First, we install additional tools. Second, we clone the Git repository from the GitHub where the code located, which we need to turn on the infrastructure. Then we have Terraform, which spins up the additional server for us. After that, it's gonna wait for my approval because the idea is that we're gonna look into the pipeline here. That's called Jenkins pipeline, by the way. And in this pipeline, it provided me the output of what resources it's trying to create. So if you look into my EC2 account right now, you would see that I have only one Jenkins running, right? But at the end of it, it's going to be one more. I'm just going to filter it. Instance state equal. I'm just doing some filtering here. So now you see only running servers, right? And so you would see one more server, which is called Dead Jokes, and I'll provide you the link where you can go and play certain games. You will see what it is. So here, it's waiting for my input right now. And I'm gonna click on it and say yes, proceed. And now it goes into the next steps of automation. And now it's creating the infrastructure. And place where I'm looking now is logs. So it's a log message from the Jenkins saying what it's doing. And currently it's saying it's creating additional firewall or security group. And now it's creating the instance. So going back into my AWS account, sorry, wrong one. Here's the right one. I see that, hey, I do have Node.js app server running. It's still in the initializing state, so that's okay. That's why my Jenkins is, I think it's actually starts running the update command right away. So now Jenkins pulls in the second tool, which is Ansible. And Ansible performs the setup instructions on this server. And there is a quiet difference between Terraform and Ansible, right? Terraform provides us the infrastructure itself, but it doesn't set it up because that's not the main purpose of this tool. For setting up the infrastructure, setting up our servers, we have the second tool, which is called Ansible. I already mentioned it, right? And Ansible goes in and sets it up for us, following the specific instruction set which we give it. I will provide you with the link to the GitHub where you can get all of the code which was run here today, and you can definitely just follow the steps and do the same. Um, what's next? Once the Ansible was run on the instance, it pauses and asks me again for, hey, can I set it up? Yes, you can. By the way, I'm oversimplifying a lot of things right now. So feel free to ask your questions specifically in the chat. If you didn't catch something or something looks not the way how it's supposed to, or you see some strange stuff here, you definitely can just type it in, communicate with me. So right now I'm running Ansible, and Ansible, what it does, it went into that server and it starts setting it up. What it's doing, for those who know, it's setting up the Node 16 because the applications were run on the Node 16. And from there, it would install additional packages. So PM2, copying the application code to this server. It's being honestly copy pasted code from someone's project because we are DevOps engineers. We do not really need to codify anything. Installing additional dependencies. So some missing bits and pieces specifically for the Node.js. And we will see what it will do. Okay, so it says success, right? Now, if I go into my server here, I click on it and I find the public IPv4 DNS name here. I copy it, I put it in my browser, and I need to do this magic. So it's a 3001 after semicolon. It's still gonna say the site is not safe. The site is not safe. This is okay, but the idea is that you would be able to see this random dad jokes generator, the BP station. The B selling. Right. Um, the next site, which also was launched here, is something what is called battleships. Keep in mind, those applications, they are fairly simple. They are just the demo apps taken out of the wild world web for us to fool around. So that's not a finished project. And in the real life, in the real company, you will be doing something alike, but with a slightly different purpose. You might have a better website, you might have a better looking app, you might need to support a better looking something, but the general idea would be exactly the same. So right now we perform the first deployment, automated deployment of the applications on the server. Uh, Now I would like to show you what's the actual templated code looks like and something what the DevOps engineers would be able to work and understand, right? Um, in this case, I really want to check where did I copy it from. So that was lesson 15. What was the repository? Okay, here we go. So that is the DevOps January group. That's 2 seasons ago, I believe. I typed the address wrong. Oh, I'm not cool at it. Oh, come on. I know that you exist. One more semicolon. Here we go. And you see how many lessons are here. You're not gonna get access to all of them. But there is my own profile where I did posted the open source repository for all of us to use. Let me find it out. Private, private, private. I want to filter. So public, what I have in public. this one. Here we go. So that is the public repo. It contains some really badly written templates, so trust me. But you can use it. And there's even a short README on what you need, what you would want to do, and how do you want to work with it, right? Um, Very first thing is Jenkins pipeline. So that's how the codified steps looks like. And we're just gonna go over the steps here. The very first step is that we're gonna pull the data from this repository once every hour by Jenkins. Well, that means that if there are some changes in the code here, the Jenkins will restart and trigger the pipeline again, right? Then we have certain parameters, which are mean wait or not and sleep or not. Those are needed for these specific steps to be run successfully. We also identified the tools which we're gonna use. So in this case, we use Terraform. Terraform does have its own versions, and it needs to be set up as the plugin on the Jenkins. So this is the additional piece which goes into the Jenkins, and again, we kind of learn on the lessons how to set it up properly. In this case, I'm just using it. If you're gonna go the same road and try to repeat current lesson, you would need to find the instructions on how to set up the Terraform plugin. It's not that complicated. It's just time consuming. um, Next, we set up the environmental variables. So those variables we're gonna use later on in our automated steps, right? And very first one is what kind of repository we're gonna use. Second one is the actual access credentials for the GitHub. I think they are not necessary for this repository because the repository is public, so you can omit this one, but I left it here because of the previous group. But if you're gonna work with your own repositories on the GitHub, which are closed source, so you're private, you definitely would want to have something like this. That's the key which provides you access to your own code, which is hidden behind the private settings. Ansible directory. That's an interesting one, right? That's the directory where we store our Ansible code, which Jenkins runs against our server. It's a complicated sentence, so pay attention. It's a directory where we store the Ansible playbook, which getting run against our server, which is set up by the Terraform, and that's why we have Terraform directory. Next, here we start performing steps. So here we actually do our steps by steps if we would do it manually, but Jenkins does it for us. So we do not participate in this process at all. We just write it once, repeat it multiple times, right? The very first one is to clone the GitHub repo with all of the necessary code. This is kind of like a complicated construction, but again, it's a common pattern. You do not really need to memorize it. The idea is here that we are copying the main branch from this repository and using these credentials. Again, unnecessary step, but well, it's there. Terraform. To run Terraform, we want to have it installed as the plugin. That's the one thing. But now we are calling it as the separate application inside the Jenkins. So it's like your camera would call your calculator if you do something. uh, well, it's a bad example, but hopefully it keeps you awake. Then one of the steps is we do the initialize. So we download all of the necessary bits and pieces by Terraform. And from here, we do the plan. So Terraform plan allows us to see what we are trying to turn on in our cloud without actually turning it on. Because certain things can have a really catastrophic changes in our cloud, and certain things they can really mess up our website if it's already online, right? So first we want to run safe way of checking what exactly we're trying to change. And the next step after the Jenkins gets my approval, so that is essentially just a codified way of saying, am I improving it or not? So it's asking me a question, yes or no, to be or not to be. And once I'm saying yes, we go to the next step. If I'm saying no, we're gonna stop the pipeline right here. That's it. It's not gonna go to the next step. Um, in this step, we run Terraform apply. So we did the plan in the previous step, and we save it to the file. From here, we run Terraform, which applies the plan which we created earlier. And the next step is actually so the next step is essentially showing us the not no this one is outputting the IP address of the newly created server into the Ansible special file, Ansible inventory, which Ansible will be using later in this step. In this step, Ansible uses the file of inventory, and no, actually in this step, we just install Ansible on the Jenkins. So that's the step. We're making sure that we do have this tool. In the next step, we actually, after confirming that yes, we do want to do it, we run the Ansible playbook. And that's where we specify the IP of this server, which we just launched. That's where we specify the file with the playbook. I'll show you the file. And here's the bunch of the additional settings, like username, private key, and that is for the Ansible to actually accept that key, because we do not follow best practice for this one. Now the Ansible playbook, right? Ansible playbook is stored here in the Ansible. And here's the generic playbook. That's the one which we use. You can use any of it later on, but that's for you to play with. And the idea is the playbook essentially the same, not the same, but similar structure to the Jenkins pipeline, where we run stuff step by step. But now it's for the Ansible, because Jenkins is just the automation robot which run things for us. But now we use one of the things to set up our server. And what's interesting is that here we also create the domains. Well, essentially, they wouldn't be active. That's okay. But keep in mind, so this is my domain, and I'm gonna actually update it. I gotta update it because you do not really want to have it here. Nonetheless, you would have a generic domain name similar to what I posted in the chat, which you can use to get access to the bottle ships and to the dead jokes. So what are the tasks here, right? Update the application set, give access to the Ubuntu user. That's the admin access for the user, which is going to be running the our applications, I think. We update the application cache, so we make sure we have the latest and greatest versions of all of the available apps for the Linux. From here, we install the Node. Node is the engine which runs JavaScript application. I think we add Node. Here we install it, right? Here we install the additional PM2 application management tool. So that tool is allowing us to run multiple Node.js applications on our server. So Node.js, it's something related to JavaScript for those who heard it, and JavaScript is one of the languages on which our websites can be written, and not only websites. We setting up this tool PM2, install Nginx. Okay, yes, we actually configure the Nginx with this one and restart it. Nginx is the reverse proxy, or it's one more application which helps us to route requests to our services, such as dead jokes or battleships. But the thing is, because we do not create domain names for it, we not necessarily need to have the Nginx. And from there, we deploy the applications itself. So that means that we go into the, hold on, copy application code to the remote server. So Battleship is here, or Dead Jokes is here. So it's copying this code on the server. And here it starts them with the, installs the additional dependencies and starts stuff with using PM2. That's technically all of it. And that's where the magic ends. That was a very lengthy and really convoluted explanation. But this is the project which is group is running on the lesson 15, and it's a combination of the multiple technologies. So that's the automation, which helps us avoid manually doing it. The thing with the automation is that it looks complex. It does. And it could be complex to write it first time. But you wrote it once. I think I wrote this stuff sometime in. I can actually see it. When did I do it last time? Yeah, I know I'm only one contributor here. So last year. Wow. That was December 2023. And then I do not really need to remember what exactly I wrote here. Well, it's good to have the understanding. And if I need exactly the same instance, like today, I just run it again. Instead of manually going and trying to repeat the same steps, mixing it up along the way, finding some complications, troubles, and so on. And that's one of the essential parts of the DevOps engineering. DevOps is the person which is actually focused on the automation. So if we run something more than 3 times, specifically manually, we do really want to create the template like this and just let it run by itself. And that's what we teach here. For those who are curious, I also have the Terraform code here. So essentially, this is the templatized description of the server which we just launched. It does have the Route 53 record here. Okay, so yeah, because this is the different repository, it does create the record. You do not really need this one, but essentially in these files is hidden the configuration of the server which we just launched. So T2 micro instance, specific version of the system, specific security group, aka our firewall, and specific key. We would want to have a key though, because that's how the Jenkins access this instance. Without key, it wouldn't be able to run Ansible on this instance. All the rest, again, just the additional setups, and it's like opening the additional ports, right? And so on. Um, so take a look if you're curious. I'm gonna post the link in our chat again. For those who miss it, that's the repository. It's the open source repository. There is no logs. It's completely public. I can try to increase the size, but I don't think, no, it will not. So unfortunately, that's the best way you can see it. I'm highlighting it now. And you can try and launch stuff by yourself. Jenkins is a very interesting topic, which worth of actually spending more than 1.5 hour today. But I was trying to show you the essentials, right? And there is one more thing, like Steve Jobs said, right? What we need to do. We need to clean up after ourselves. So we run this automation. It created the instance. Now what, right? We do not really want to keep it running all the time because, hey, we gonna be paying for it at the end of the day. So there is a way of turning it off. And in my case, it's another automation, which is called destroy. And I'm just gonna run it. So thing with this one is that I'm not running any additional Ansible playbooks here, but just a clear Terraform. Terraform just goes and completely wipes all of the newly created resources. And the way how it knows about it, that because it does have its own memory, and it stores its memory somewhere in the cloud. That's the way how we set it up. And that allows me to start, stop, run, uh, and everything uh, without actually having access to it. So I just went and shut it off, and now it should be, yeah, it's not running anymore. If you look at it, that's the instance, one more up, it's this one, and it's shutting down. I'm gonna pause here for a little bit, and I see you guys do have the additional questions. Yes, all of these questions will be answered on our networking class and not only on this one. But we're gonna iterate about the terminology and all of the additional stuff along the course. And I actually gonna explain all of the small things. And you can ask our uh, teacher on the practice classes, and you can always Google it. So the simplest thing, and that becomes more like a go-to, but that can make you also not smart sometimes, is the chat GPT, right? I'm having the paid account, but you guys can have access to the free account. I think it provides for access to like what? GPT-4o mini? Just gonna try it, like log it out, see what happens. I will stay logged out. Yeah, so it's 4 mini. And I'm just gonna post exactly the same question right here. Right. But I gonna word it a little bit different, right? Can you explain me what is port repository domain? And that thing is pretty well at summarizing and providing additional information. I'm not joking. It can be used as really nice augmented knowledge database, and I do use it myself from time to time. On our lessons, we will be using it a lot as well. I'm not encouraging you to buy the subscription by any means. We actually work with the free resources, so that thing is pretty good at summarizing certain stuff. I'm trying to pass the response, but well, what I can do from here, yeah, I don't think I can actually share this chat to you because I'm not logged in, so I'm not allowed to create the links, but this is okay. Also, as the additional part of the demo, right, there is an open source project which is called Olama. That's exactly how it's called. Hold on. And you can always go there, and I think you can GitHub or and Olama project page is gonna give you the instructions on how to install and download it for the Windows, Mac, or Linux. And it does have a pretty nice application, like an actual application. And what's gonna happen from there? Um, you're gonna have your own small AI on your computer. Be warned that you need to have a pretty powerful computer, otherwise the response times will be super slow. In my case, because I work mostly with a terminal, I gotta do something like this. Llama run uh, Llama 3.2. That's the one of the latest models from the Meta or Facebook, right? And you get chat like this. And here you can ask exactly the same question. Uh, can you explain to me what is network port, uh, repository, and what was the third one? Sorry, Alina, I'm keep using it as the example, but I think it's a great question. And basically, here we go. In my case, it generates response super fast, right? Because I do have a powerful hardware on my laptop as well. For you, it might be slower, but eventually you will get something like this, right? And again, it explains it. Uh, it's just the additional example where you can get, uh, it's by to turn it off. And basically, that's it. So it's like a micro library in your pocket. Now, um, any questions about Jenkins? Marina, can you mute new people as well, please? Just in case. Am I here, guys? Okay. You are here, I see. No, it's nice. It just silence from the other side, so I was expecting a little bit. Um, I still have like 15 to 20 minutes more. So for now, I want to show you the real magic. Thank you, Anthony, by the way. And that real magic is the advanced stuff which you folks should be able to do after 3 months with me. Not necessarily right now, because I do understand that you're coming from the zero background. And this is great because you're a clear page. We can write the knowledge on you, and you can actually show me that, hey, some obvious stuff for me is not obvious for you. I really want to work with you on it. But I do have quite a few advanced projects. For those who's kind of like, hey, this is boring, I know everything. Um, I'm gonna show you some really interesting thing right now, which well will be fast and really saturated. So that's Anthony is for you and for those who understand things. Basically, the request was, hey, show me from the beginning how to Dockerize the application, right? As the application itself, I'm gonna take the Pacman. So the same Pacman which I have here, Pacman Paxel.ca, you can go there and play it. And we're gonna just launch it locally on my computer. But I will show you how you can do it the same on the instance, right? Again, I would need to probably, hold on. I think I will launch this one. Just gonna start it and we gonna play with it a little bit. So, ready for speedrun, right? Basically, I'm gonna open the VS Code. That's something what we're gonna work with. This is the essentially notepad for the developers. And in my case, I have a home lab where I do dump all of this stuff, which I do for fun and for myself and for my group. And here I do have a project which is called Games. Hold on. Example Pacman. I'm gonna use that one. So, projects, example Pacman. What I see here, it's a K3S local. And here I think I want to have something more. So what I'm looking for is the actual Docker file. I have a Docker ignore here, but I don't think I do have Docker though. That is weird, honestly. Hold on. Oh, here I have a Docker file. Cool. So, to actually Dockerize the application, we essentially trying to repeat the same steps as the developer would do to launch it, like one-to-one. For the Node.js application, it could be not true sometimes, but most of the cases, like for Node.js, you really want to just compile it into the source file and use it, for those who know. But for us, we're just gonna repeat exactly the same steps as the developers repeat when they want to run this application. So in this case, the configuration of the application is stored in the package.json. And again, it's kind of a simple thing. Just start, so it's not dot. Also, what we need for the application, we need the list of dependencies. In this case, it's these things plus nodemon. Well, essentially, it will automatically install itself, so we do not really need to worry about it. But I want to highlight that sometimes there is an issue when you try to run the Node.js application, which was created on the Node.js like 16, and you're trying to run it on just 18 or 20 or something, like a higher version which does not support it, and they do have a conflicts. In our case, we do have a Docker file, so it's a source, I think, Pacman itself, and here we go, and Docker, right? Now, to be able to run the Docker, you need to have Docker installed on your computer. Docker is the specific virtualization technology, which you can and we will find how to install and what to do with it from the Docker official documentation site. What DevOps do, they read a lot of docs, trust me. And I posted in the chat, right? So here we are working with the Ubuntu. I click on the Ubuntu and firewall limitations, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, there are commands. Oh, it just doesn't tell me. To the unofficial packages and install it. Installation methods. So we're gonna use this. And that is the list of commands. Again, just copy paste it and you will get it installed. So all of this plus this. Again, it's require some reading. Without reading, it's not gonna work. I just know what to do. That's why I speed run through it, right? Next step, we have Docker installed. Minus version. Hopefully that works. Okay. In my case, it's a Docker version 2405. You need to switch to the directory where the Docker file is located. So in my case, if I run pwd, you see that's the long path to the Docker file itself. Docker file is the instruction file which gives us the step-by-step instructions on how to build our application and package it into the image. From here, I'm just gonna run uh, Docker build. I might tag it. Hold on. Yeah, I want to tag it as the public something. So well, let's name it Pacman B1. So here I'm naming the my image, which I'm gonna be using in the future, and I'm running specific Docker command which builds me this image. Image is the compiled code which is not running. So it's something static, like an archive or something like that. So Docker build, some magic is happening. Again, depending how powerful is your computer, it's gonna take either longer or faster. In my case, it's fairly fast. You can trust me. And at the end, we're gonna get an artifact. And it's errored out. Awesome. What exactly you missed? So let's do some troubleshooting. That's exactly what DevOps do as well. In this case, it's saying, hey, I do not have the application. I do not have the packages on, which actually make me to run, which is quite interesting. Clone game source. I think the Docker file should be actually here. So it needs to be run from the proper location. In my case, that would be the Pacman folder. So I gotta switch back to the Pacman folder. I have my Docker file here for those who still with me. And I'm just gonna rerun the same command, Docker build. See how that helps. I think it will, because I've tried to run it from somewhere else. It didn't really run, and yeah, should be more successful now. Okay, so now the build is finished, right? For the developers, this is technically end of the road because, well, you have your piece basically compiled. Now you can run it. Docker run, what was the name? That's my name of the image. And I want to expose it on the port. So minus, I think it's this one. I'm not exactly sure about so we will see how that pans out. 8080, I think that is the correct command. No, no way. It's missing certain ports. Okay. Now it's errored out here, which is still okay, but the actual application is running on the port 8080. And if I go into my browser tab, I'm gonna have some magic here. Here's the Pacman. And this Pacman is running completely on my computer. Localhost is your addressing your local machine. And that's how you have the localized Node.js application. So I think I do not really want to bore you too much, but well, let's try it. So what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna open the next tab in my terminal. Docker vs a. So I have this image. I'm gonna stop it. You do not necessarily need to repeat it the same way as I do. But now I need to push my image into my repository. So basically, I need to store it somewhere else so my server can pull it from somewhere else. So Docker push, and that was Pacman v1, right? And here we go. Now I'm gonna have my image there, and it's a public image. So you can, sorry, right there. And you can download it too because it's a public image. So if you run Docker pull, you will be able to get this Pacman. What I gonna do next, right? Guess what? We have server. So to run it on the server, I'm just gonna go into the instances, test instance K3s. I'm not exactly sure what I used it for before, but hold on. I'm looking, okay, so yes. I just gotta do it with a connect button. So the same connect as I did in the terminal, right? Waiting. Docker -v. No, it doesn't have Docker, right? So we're gonna follow the same advice as I gave you. Go into the Docker official documentation. Install Docker engine. And gonna do exactly the same commands as I showed you from here. So I'm not actually a magician, I just follow the manual. Docker desktop for Linux. No, I don't want to have a desktop. I just want to have add Docker. Here, click on it. Firewall, blah, blah, blah. And we need this. So I copy this code into the window here. Paste. It does its own magic. While it does it, I'm copying the actual Docker installation instruction, right? And yes, I want the additional stuff being installed. That's something what you would want to confirm. So please pay attention. And here, it's done. When it's done, you will see this string like this. I'm pasting additional commands, which installing the actual Docker packages now. Yes, I want everything to install. Again, I do not really think twice. I just copy the instructions from some Docker site. It's safe. And it's safe because I'm actually playing in the sandbox in the cloud, right? Now, if I do this, Docker -v, I have Docker installed. And now what I gotta do? Docker pull. And if you remember, there is a certain image tag which is supposed to be public repository. So I'm gonna pull this image. I do not set up any additional keys, nothing. And it says I need to do it with a sudo. Sudo is the administrative access. So, okay, it's downloading it. It's happening. It's happening. Now we have an image. If I run Docker images here, yeah, sudo su. I'm just gonna run it from the root. So sudo su, that's command which switch you to the administrator level. And here, Docker images, right? So it shows me that I downloaded the image of the Pacman. Now, Docker run -p. Let's look into the instance itself and check what kind of ports I do have open. Okay, so I have 80, 443, 22, 6, 443. So I'm actually curious, do I run anything on this instance? To check it, I just go there and to the IP address. Yeah, continue to the website. Oh, nothing there. Cool. So what I can try to do now, I can try to do port 8080. I'm not gonna experiment with that. So port 8080 and the same image. Alexei, passage name, blah, blah, blah. This part, it's not always working the way I like it. So I copy it, and now I'm just pasting stuff. You can do the same with the mouse. So now I'm running my Pacman on the Docker, on the instance in the AWS cloud. And now the last details, you want to really make sure that you have your security port open here. So I click on the security group one more time. And here I added inbound rules. And I'm gonna add the rule, which is custom TCP 8080, because that's something what I opened. Yeah, I'm gonna unblock it for everybody. And I'm gonna give it a name Pacman, right? Save the rules. And now, sorry, jumping in between, I want to go back to the instance. And you have public IPv4 here. So if I run it with a port 8080, it didn't go well in the Zoom chat for some reason. Hold on. Here we go. And I click on that link as well, just to prove that it works. Continue to the website. Oh, okay. That was also wrong. It needs to actually reference the port 8080. So the actual link will look, hold on, something like this. There is nothing on the 80 port. Everybody knows that, right? And here we go. Here's our Pacman, which is accessible by me, you, and everybody else. And that was the complex example right now, because we containerized the app, so we put it in the image, we built the image, we pushed the image into the Docker Hub, we downloaded from the Docker Hub, we installed the Docker on the server, and we run this Pacman on the server in the Docker. A lot of Docker words here. But that's what it was made for. Docker is like a really good piece of our bootcamp. So something with what we work a lot, and something what you will get a lot of hands-on just doing things. Right now, it was a really complicated example from sometime on the 25th, 30th lesson. And right now, it was an example where a lot of tech was combined too. Without understanding the virtualization, well, this is really hard example. But, well, hey, if you fancy to launch your own Pacman, you just can go there and play it. That's all about Docker. And again, just to prove the point, I'm gonna open the link again. Yeah, it's keep skipping the 8080 port, so be careful with that. And as soon as I run Control C here, yep. So it just stopped my Docker image. So Docker PS. It's created status app. I don't think it should be running, but we'll see. Yeah, it still does. Okay. So it got me disconnected from it. So I'm gonna do Docker stop. This one. Yeah. Different terminals. Docker PS. Copying the ID. Docker stop. Here. Okay, so now it's stopped. And now my Pacman doesn't exist anymore. That's technically all of it. And that was the really short run over the Docker and complicated tech. That was like really, I don't know, 60,000 feet overview of it. There is way more to it, and we do have dedicated lessons specifically for the Dockers. As of now, I'm gonna just stop it because I do not really need this instance. And so I'm not incurring any charges for the instance. I also gonna stop Jenkins because, well, that's the end of the lesson, and technically, uh, this is it, so I can stop it. With the Jenkins, I do have an additional automation setup in my cloud, which actually runs once a day, so sometime around 10 o'clock in the evening, and turns it off because I forgot to turn it off a couple of times. I haven't been using it for 3 days, but I paid like $2 for this 3 days. I didn't really want to pay it again, so I just created a small snippet which would turn it off for me automatically every night at 10 o'clock. If it's not, if it's turned off, then it will do nothing. But again, that's just an example of, hey, how you can work with the cloud and some automation stuff. Any questions? I'm gonna leave 5 minutes for the questions. While I'm closing these tabs. Llama is fun, by the way, guys. Try it. You'll like it. It can be used not only for like DevOps stuff, but for a lot of different things. I think we should move on. From there, we're going back to our presentation. I hope that wasn't super fast. I know it was really not understandable and hard to follow. So request the video, try it again. That's something what you will be able to do in like, I don't know, 1 month-ish. The Docker itself, it's 3 months, and Kubernetes is 4 months after all. I just closing the extra tabs. And what I wanted to do though, I wanted to open the presentation because I think Marie is.
I'm here.
You here?
Do you want
Okay,
me to
so
show the...
I gonna give up the share to you, so we can go to
Yes.
the final question. How much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So now it's your turn.
Oh, one moment, please. I'm going to share my screen right now. Here we are.
Okay.
Yes, so here you see the price with special offer for participants, our webinar. And if there are any technical questions for the Alexei, please write them in the Zoom chat so we can go back to them and answer in the end. Right now, I want to repeat the information about the timeline schedule of the course. So here you see that the group starts on November 6th, but we don't make groups up to 10 people. So there are few places after the yesterday webinar, half of them went away. So you have like the opportunity to start the course November 6th. Hurry up. The duration of the course is 4 months plus internship plus career coaching with our HR manager. And here is schedule. So you see lessons are 6:30 p.m. Please notice that it's Pacific time zone. For Eastern time zone, it's plus 3 hours. Also pay attention that all our sessions are live in Zoom. So on our lessons, you can unmute yourself, ask questions. Also, every lesson is recorded and then we publish it on our educational platform so students can rewatch the lesson. Or if you missed the lesson, it's okay. Just watch the recording. And also we have group chat where students can ask questions. Okay, so if you missed the online lesson and you watched recording and you have questions, so you can discuss them on in our group chat. And here is the price for one-time payment and installment payment. If you want to make installment payment, please scan QR code and discuss the details about payment options with your manager. Also, you can scan QR. When you scan QR code, it doesn't mean that you pay immediately. Yes, it only means that you scan this QR code so our manager can see and your request and call you back and answer your questions. Plus, you book the discount. Okay, the discount is for 24 hours. Yes, and here you see again the price. If there are any questions also according the price, don't hesitate to ask us. This price is for 4 months course plus internship, which is unlimited, and also I want to pay attention that you have like lifetime access for the course, for the online lessons, for the recordings, and for the internship and our HR manager. So don't miss this opportunity. I don't see any questions here, but you have the
You hear
discussion
them.
here in Zoom chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay, Oleg also asked a question. Oleg, if you can, please scan QR code. It's direct message. Scan QR code and discuss this question with your manager, because like only your manager can provide the information according to this. Okay. Okay, great. So guys, thank you for participating in these 2 days of our webinars. If you missed the first day, or if you want to rewatch the second day with practical part, which is very useful to do, because like from the first time you will understand half, but if you rewatch it, you can understand the second part, I guess. So just also you can ask the recording. If you have contacts of your manager, ask the recording, or if not, just scan QR code and our manager will call you back and ask for the recording of the lessons. So yes,
I think this is it. Yeah.
Great.
Just
Thanks
talk to us.
everyone for
Yeah,
participating.
I know.
Sorry, may I ask?
Anthony, just
Okay,
oh,
question here.
yes.
Anna, I actually signed for the Russian speaking course, but I really would like to do like English course. Can I switch those courses and pay extra for it or no?
Yes, you can also scan QR code, and our manager will call you back and you will ask this question, because only your manager has like the advantage to do this.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes, for
Wow,
those
somebody likes me in English better. Fine.
Yeah, for those of you, we have like we have PASV, where we have Russian version of our courses, and also we have English versions of our courses, so our students can choose. Great. Alexei, thank you for this lesson. It was very interesting and useful. I hope everyone
Awesome.
scanned this QR code who wanted to do this. Okay. Great. Thanks, everyone. Have nice weekends.
Thank
Wait
you.
till November.
Have a nice weekend. Good to see you.
Wait
See
in
you in
the
the course.
to start the course. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.